Make it plain.
MIP.
With Masamela Matfumo.
Mark Thompson.
Make it plain.
Get woke.
Do you know the story of Sean Monterrosa?
Do you know what happened to Sean?
Do you know about Sean Monterrosa?
Did you hear?
Witnesses saw him kneeling with his hands up.
He was kneeling
They said he was kneeling
with his hands up.
We need justice for Sean Monterrosa.
We need justice.
We need justice for Sean.
We need justice
Now. We need justice for Sean Monterrosa.
We need justice now.
Justice for Sean. Justice for Sean Monterrosa.
Sean was my son. I really miss him. We really love him. And we love him.
Please help us get justice for Sean Monterrosa.
Folks, I was honored to have been asked to take part in the public service announcement, the video demanding justice for Sean Monterrosa. We have seen too much death and violence at the hands of the police as we endure this pandemic in 2020. We've also endured this police-demic, and Sean was a victim of the police-demic. We talk about George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and others. Sean was demonstrating on behalf of George Floyd. And Sean, too, is representative of so many cases that we don't even hear about. We know about Sean's because of his family and the Gathering for Justice, but especially in terms of his family. And these two young ladies joining us today on Make It Plain. These are Sean's beloved sisters, Ashley and Michelle. And while we are honored to have them join us, we also know how difficult it is for them to talk about what happened to their brother. But we're thankful to them. Ashley and Michelle, welcome to Make It Plain.
Thank you. Good morning. Just thank you for taking part with us.
Absolutely. That picture of the three of you all together is so adorable. How old were you all in that picture?
I'm the baby, so I must have been maybe 1 or 2. I think you were 2. Sean was 4 and I was 6. So we're all 2 years apart from each other, and for 4 years.
Yeah. And those were your parents too in the PSA, right?
Yeah.
God bless them. How are they holding up?
My dad's more of very quiet about it, his only son, the last generation of
He was the last boy to carry our last name. And for my mom, my mom had miscarried a boy before having Sean. So then she lost 2 boys now. So it's very hard on my mom, and both of our parents are working. It's one of those things where, working class, black and brown, families have no choice but to continue working and just, keep pushing through. And that's the reality of our home. While Michelle and I are continuing this fight, our parents have no choice but to work to make ends meet.
Well, it's hard for me to hear. It's heartbreaking. God bless your parents. Please give them my love. thank God they have you, the two of you. And I know you all will continue to do all you can to support them. And y'all hear this, they still got to go to work. They still have to go to work. See, we talk about people, working class folk having to work in the pandemic. We have to work in the police demic too. We have to go and face these things and provide for our families, even while we're facing this pandemic and police demic. Lord have mercy. So let's inform our audience, because again, not enough people know about what happened. Let's talk about what happened on this is June of this year, correct?
Yes, June 2nd.
Okay, so let me turn the floor over to either one of you. Tell us what happened on that night.
Well, on June 1st, around 11:49 p.m., Sean sends me and Ashley we shared a group chat, and within our group chat, Sean sends me the petition link to get George Floyd justice, which is on the change.org petition. And, it only takes a minute to do so. So I responded by saying, just did it. And Ashley responded with the heart to letting him know, like, we did it for him. Didn't think anything of it. We went to bed that night, and we got a phone call around 1 p.m. hysterically.
Or 1 in the morning.
1 in the morning, of someone who knew of Sean's location, what had happened, and hysterically crying, saying that Sean is dead, Sean is dead, Sean is dead. And instantly, me and Ashley, like, what's going on? We didn't want to jump to conclusions, because that's something our family was taught. We can't, react on emotion if we don't have the facts yet or anything. So me and Ashley pulled up, because we shared locations on our phone also. So we pulled up the location. It says Vallejo, and we're in San Francisco. So it takes at least 40 minutes to 45 to get over there. We have to cross 2 bridges to get over to the city of Vallejo. So we started texting him, trying to ping his location. The person wasn't giving us enough information to understand. So, and this is when we were on like shelter in place, but with a curfew here in San Francisco. So we couldn't go out past 8 p.m., I believe. And my dad is over here yelling at me and Ashley, you guys are going to get in trouble. Don't go out. And, you'll do anything for your sibling. I instantly got my shoes on ready and started driving. We drive over there, and it's one of these things where I felt like God was letting us know my brother was no longer here. The whole drive over there, we have a connection with your loved one. And I felt literally like the cord was cut. I never felt so sick to my stomach. And
Michelle was driving, and she wanted to throw up as we were driving. And for me, I had really harsh stomach pains. And, along the road, we were playing worship music and just driving and just praying for the best and, hoping that our fear hadn't become our reality. And it wasn't until we got to 1050 Redwood Street, which was the Walgreens parking lot, that there was an officer-involved shooting, but we didn't know what had happened. And while we were at the scene trying to figure out what happened, our brother's location was still there. We saw an ambulance, but they didn't let us go through. They weren't telling us much. So they sent us on like a wild goose hunt from the Walgreens parking lot to the Kaiser Hospital to the police station, in which they kept sending us to different places that night around 2 in the morning, up until like 5:30 in the morning, try to get answers. And we didn't get any answers that night. And they sent us to the police station knowing that police station was closed. And they sent us to Kaiser, and Kaiser wasn't giving us any information. And so Michelle and I were just very distraught and just very overwhelmed with what was going on.
Well, we felt sick the whole night, and it's one of these things that, you worry, no one's answering, no one's giving you answers. We went to the yellow tape, and the officers are there. You can't be here. I go with my phone with Sean's picture, and Ashley goes with Sean's location, because we all shared. And it says our brother's pinged here. And the guy's like, well, we can't disclose anything. Then there comes another sergeant from behind, and his little notebook. He said, what's your brother's name? We gave him his name, and he just walked away. And, now that we know, it's, they knew the whole time my brother was murdered, and it was something so instant. But that night, as we were saying, we felt so sick and nauseous. My mom was back home praying, just letting God know, but my mom, it was weird because, we felt such pain and distraught and a rush of emotions that my mom, when we got home, my mom was praying, and she said, God's telling me the word solo in Spanish, solo, which means by himself. Not knowing what happened, we thought maybe Sean was arrested, maybe he just got arrested by himself, and it's crazy. God gives you confirmations, and but before we knew footage or anything, that there was only my brother there by himself, and it's just, and we didn't know yet. We didn't find out till
72 hours after,
and we have to find out ourselves. So the morning of June 2nd, around 9 a.m., I guess they did a press release on one of the news outlets and saying there was an officer-involved shooting. The person was declared dead. And we were just still trying to figure out, calling all the county jails to see if Sean maybe was arrested. We called the Kaiser. They wouldn't give us any information.
And it wasn't until I called the coroner's office of Solano County near Vallejo that I asked if my brother was possibly there, and I gave my brother his birth date. And once I gave him the birth date, they confirmed that he was at the coroner's office. So that's when we knew Sean was dead. And the person who answered the phone was surprised that the sheriffs or the police department overall never contacted us. Until to this day, the offices never contacted us. We didn't know what had occurred and how my brother came to be dead until the press conference on June 3rd, which was 72 hours afterwards, in which they said my brother was.
Well, wait, I just want to just pause a minute. You're telling us that the police never formally contacted you all?
Never.
Not even your parents?
The only time so on June 3rd was when the chief of police, Shawnee Williams, did his own press conference. And that's when he explained how my brother died, when he was kneeling with his hands up, when an officer in an unmarked pickup truck arrived to the parking lot and shot through the windshield of the pickup truck 5 times, striking my brother in the neck and out of the head. And so my brother was murdered instantly. And we didn't know any of this information until that press conference. But right an hour or 30 minutes before that press conference, one detective tried to call us and get a statement out of us, but never tried to explain what had occurred that night.
Never condolences. And it was one of these things where, like I said, we're from San Francisco, and San Francisco has its own, officer-involved shootings that happen here. But from Vallejo, there have been, since 1997, been so used to sweeping a lot of these cases under the rug. These are just old tactics that they've had already from, day one. And for our family, we're not going to let our brother's name die in vain. But this is things that they've been doing for so long.
They've murdered 37 men since 1997.
And it just pains us, that it had to be my brother to bring more attention what's been happening in Vallejo. But more importantly, we know our brother, and Sean and having encounterments with the police in the past, he knew what to do. And as we're always taught what to do, right? Sean instantly knew, on my knees with my hands up, because I'm surrendering. He could show the sign to surrender, but, there's still officers being employed that don't have mental psychiatric evaluations, who are very trigger happy, and it just doesn't, nothing in this world is okay for any of this. But more importantly, to have an AR-15 shooting from the backseat of an unmarked pickup truck as it's driving, and you have 2 officers in the driver's seat and the passenger seat. Not only are you endangering these other 2 people, but you murdered my brother. And this case is very different. Once we saw the footage be released, the president of the Vallejo Police Union ordered the destruction of evidence. So we couldn't even have a ballistics report. So the trajectory of where Jeriton supposedly,
shot through the window. They destroyed and tampered with the evidence of the windshield. So our lawyers will never be able to figure out how, or the position, if they could see Sean or whatever, unless they release other footage. And we know there's other footage, but they're just not releasing that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do a couple things here. So now, you mentioned your brother. No, let's go back even further, because something you said just stuck out to me. At one point, they sent you to Kaiser, you said?
Yeah, they sent us to Kaiser.
For what? What was the reasoning behind that? Do we know?
When we went, they said that there was an officer-involved shooting, and they did transport someone to the Kaiser. So we went to the Kaiser, and there's a bunch of sheriffs, not only from Vallejo, from all these other counties around, that apparently they came out to support. So I go approach the officer. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. The officer at 1050 Redwood Street sent us here. I'm looking for my brother. And he's like, who's your brother? I sent him a picture of it, and I was like, can I go at least in the hospital? He's like, no, the hospital's on lockdown. Every time there's an officer-involved shooting, it goes into lockdown. We didn't know. So I'm like, okay, well, can you please go in there and see, if you see my brother or have any information. We're not from here. We're from San Francisco. We shouldn't even have to be out here. And he actually was okay. He went in and said, okay, I'm going to try and figure something out. Then he comes back and he says, nope, there's a guy, heavier build, 6'2" in there. It's not your brother. And I'm like, okay, well, if he's telling me this, then he tells me maybe he got transported to this other hospital. There's 2 hospitals in Vallejo. We went to Kaiser, and then the other one is Sutter, I believe. Mm-hmm. And it's where they have cancer patients. And when we went there, after Kaiser, we went to Sutter. They had a security guard at Sutter, and, we started asking if they knew anything, if there was anyone transported from 1050 Redwood Street. They said no, but the security, he has the dispatch on, so he's been hearing everything that's happening all night. And he said, you ladies shouldn't be up here, but if your brother's location's there and everything I heard what's going on tonight, you guys just need to pray to God that, your fears might be a reality. And that was around 4 a.m. already. And he said, first of all, you ladies, it's too late for you guys to be out here. And, he understood that we're going to do anything for our brother. So I told him, I was like, do you think it's a good idea if I go back to the scene? He said, maybe some other officer might be on the nicer end and give you some actual answers. So we went back, and one of the officers said that there was a bunch of people arrested. There was a bunch of phones, and that he couldn't pin out my brother's phone. And we knew that, by then we knew it was just Sean, so they were lying from the start. And after that, we went back to Kaiser, and we tried asking again. They said no. So then I sit in my car and I'm like, well, should we call 911 and try to file a missing persons report? This is all new to us, so we didn't know. And the girl says, well, let me transfer you to the watch commander. She transfers her to the watch commander. He instantly gets on the phone, very rude. He said, who gave you my number? I said, an officer. He's like, they shouldn't be giving you my number. You shouldn't have it. And I'm like, okay, well, we're trying to locate our brother. They're saying there was an officer-involved shooting at this 1050 Redwood Street. He said, okay. What's your brother's name? And at first we didn't know we should say Sean's name because we've given it out so many times and no one said anything. So we're trying to describe him. He said, no, I know the name. We say his name. He's like, oh, well, you're going to have to find out on TV with like everyone else tomorrow.
When we said we were impacted family.
Yeah, he at first was, are you the parents? I'm like, no, we're the sisters. We're over here looking for him. And it was one of these things where like, wow, that was very rude, right? Like we're rush of emotions looking for Sean, and to have someone who's, in charge of like giving you answers and to tell us that we'll be finding out on the news. And that's when like my heart really dropped to my stomach. And we went back home, and because there was, it was already 5:30 in the morning, and I told Ashley, like, we're not going to get any answers just being out here. Let's go home, regroup, try to sleep, and see what mom says. Because my mom was up all night crying, and my mom says, God's giving me this peace that I don't understand. And that's when she got the word solo, which meant by himself. And it's crazy that we always think back to that day because, it's like we were getting signs and answers before we knew the truth.
Yeah. Okay, so the press conference. You mean to tell me that at the press conference, the chief of police said they admitted that Sean was on his knees with his hands up?
Yeah, and the chief was talking like he already saw the footage. He said, I seen Sean on his knees with his hands up. So he was talking like he already knew what had really occurred that night. And then a few days after, he changed his whole statement to get in line with the police union statement, saying that Sean was in a half-kneeling, crouching position, aiming to get something on his waistband and looked like it was a tactical position to shoot. They always say this all the time to cover face. Sean didn't even have a gun. It didn't matter regardless. It's one of those things that you said one thing at first, like you saw what had actually occurred, and then you're just trying to get in line with the police unions. And one thing we didn't realize, how powerful these police unions were. And after that, after the press conference, our board of supervisors here in San Francisco demanded that the city of Vallejo release the names of the officers involved. And it wasn't until that letter that the police union of Vallejo filed a restraining order to prevent the release of the names being
to this day it hasn't
released.
To this day it hasn't been publicly released. It's been leaked, but it's one of these things that for us as a family, we're fighting to get answers for my brother and, you know, to learn how powerful they are. And we were just like, wow. And it's the first time you hear another city telling another city in the Bay Area to basically put themselves in order and do what's right. And yeah.
So is there footage of that original press conference where?
There's footage of the original press conference. Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to see that at some
Yeah.
point because that's very interesting. Now, the shooter was in the back seat of the truck?
Yes.
Okay, you have to explain that to me. So he's in the back seat shooting with people sitting in the front seat.
Yeah. And he shot through the windshield with an AR-15 and 5 bullets shooting out the window, and just one bullet hit my brother in the neck and out of the head while he was on his knees.
Was anybody else hit?
No.
Okay. So what are they saying they were doing? I mean, who does that? And I mean, let me just ask you, what is their side of the story that would cause them to shoot through the windshield of their own vehicle? That's what people do every day.
Their side of the story was that there was a report of like a looting being done, and so the truck was pulling up to the scene, and before the car had even stopped, the officer Jarrett Tom was in the back seat of the pickup truck and grabbed his AR-15 and shot through the windshield 5 times. And while he shot my brother, the car didn't even stop, and the car stopped after the fact that Sean was shot. So it was like 50 yards behind, you know, like it was pretty far, and you couldn't even see my brother regardless. And he was just shooting just to shoot. You didn't see my brother with a gun because he didn't have a gun. And regardless, you probably didn't even see my brother regardless because it was just so far. But you know, these people are just so trigger happy. And in Vallejo, there's a tradition in which they all bend their badge. They bend their star on their star that they have to signify how many bodies they all killed.
And this has been leaked by the ex-chief who was fired by the city for being a whistleblower and speaking out on this is not right. These officers go have barbecues to celebrate and signify when they bend their badge.
And there's a group of officers in Vallejo that are called the Fatal 14. And there's 14 officers that have killed more than from one person to 5 people, and they're still on the force and still working. So Vallejo's been getting away with this for such a long time, and for them to have a tradition to bend their badge and followed by like a barbecue and celebration to, you know, like it's this huge frat boy culture of like, congratulations, you killed someone, welcome to the club, you know? And it's one of those things like, what if Jarrett Ton was just shooting to shoot and hoping to get his badge bent, you know, just to join this little club of initiation?
The barbecues and celebrations kind of like the barbecues and picnics they would have after lynchings.
Yeah.
But it sounds like what you're saying is that that's exactly what he did. He was just shooting randomly.
He was.
He was. Because to this day, you know, it's one of these things where the way Chief Shawnee Williams said at the press conference, right, that he saw that Sean on the footage, wherever he saw it or heard it from one of the other officers, that Sean was on his knees with his hands up. And instantly once, you know, Jarrett Ton murders my brother and then the car stopped, he says, what did he point at us? Oh, I don't know, man. The other guy who was driving said, I don't know, man. And he said it in a way like
as code, like, hey, like, he had a gun,
you know, or you really messed yourself up, you know. And it for us, it was painful to see my brother's last final moments, and the fact that they dehumanized us, they dehumanized Black and brown men and women, that they had my brother handcuffed
while he was lifeless. You know, after they had shot my brother, they put him into handcuffs still.
And they
gave him the wrong kind of CPR. When someone has a wound, you apply pressure. And they were giving him CPR, exerting more blood out of the body, and it was horrible.
Yeah, and it's one of these things too where Vallejo, you know, it's been happening for so long, and it's just hurt. You know, it's painful. It's painful to watch because we've seen our brother have run-ins with officers. You know, we've seen how they mistreat our brothers and sisters on the streets, and it's just different when it's one of your own loved ones, and you have to see all this. And you know, as we're turning our pain to power and continue this fight. And really ensuring that we're the last family in Vallejo that has to endure this pain, because this has happened for too long.
And we feel like with Sean's last text message of sending us the link for George Floyd to, can you get George Floyd justice? And just like his last text message was to get George Floyd justice, our message from that was, now we're going to get you justice. And it's kind of like he passed the baton to us and was like, you know what, here's the tools and run with it. And, it's been 6 months now and we've accomplished a lot. A huge thank you to the community and, to the man above that we've had, that we have the strength to get up every day and do the work we do. And it's been 6 months that we've gotten the DA to recuse herself, who's been justifying all these murders. And we've gotten arrested at the governor, Gavin Newsom's home 2 months ago. And finally, yesterday, we got our charges dropped. But it's just one of those things where impacted families shouldn't have to continue to put their bodies on the line just to get what simply should be a given, And a lot of these politicians get silent hush money to vote no on legislation. And we've just been exposed to so much within the last few months that, we're just in awe of what we're doing. And, we're not just doing it for Sean, because we understand that so many people can be Sean. And, Sean has been a bunch of other people, that we're not just fighting for Sean. Like, yes, justice for our brother, but it's part of a bigger thing. And it's part of, fighting for a bigger system that has been deeply rooted since 500 years ago, when police were started as slave capturers, so we're very clear on, the vision and the goal. The goal is abolition eventually, but for now we can defund and reallocate funds to Black and brown communities and businesses. And yeah.
Well, don't say defund. Joe Biden, everybody says, oh, that costs us seats. But see, I know something different. Yeah. Everybody I've talked to who's a pollster and deals with these numbers said that defund actually mobilized more 18 and 29-year-olds to get out and vote. And that's what counts. So we don't need to yield on none of that. So I appreciate you not letting that go. So let's just go back for a minute again. You got the district attorney to recuse.
Yeah. 2 weeks after our brother was murdered, we pulled up to her office. We pulled up in a yellow school bus randomly. We pulled up in a yellow school bus with like 40 people slapping Lil Boozy, F the police. And then we turned in a whole petition, and like our lawyers turned in a whole packet of, recommending her to recuse herself, not just in our brother's case, but in Willie McCoy's case, who was also murdered in Vallejo.
And he was shot 57 times a year before my brother.
And he was just sleeping in his car at a Taco Bell. Yeah, so we've gotten her to recuse. We've gotten Nancy Pelosi to speak out and demand the FBI of Sacramento to intervene, although we don't want the FBI to intervene. It's just one of those things that Nancy Pelosi is a dinosaur and she doesn't really speak out on much, but at least she's speaking out on, our brother's case. So, I mean, it's, we're not disturbing the peace. We're disturbing people's silence, and people have been silenced for way too long. And, we're just upsetting the setup. All
right, y'all. So they said two bad words. They said defund. They said Nancy's a dinosaur. Oh, Lord have mercy.
But it's one of these things where we, as impacted families, we have all these people who have been in office for far too long, and there's been so many murders by police. And here in 2020, under, like you said, a police-demic and pandemic,
COVID,
that we're seeing, these conversations we may have had a couple of years ago, people were like, nah, forget it, yes, say their names, but, people turn their cheek. And now it's, as we're in lockdown, people have to see it. You can't just turn your cheek anymore. There is a lot of performance art and performance activism. We understand that. But for impacted families, like Ashley said, we have to continue to put our bodies on the line. And that's what we need to build that bridge between impacted families and politicians. Yes, you can say our loved ones' names,
and give us our condolences, but
where are the actions?
Yeah, condolences are meaningless gestures if you don't put your work to what your mouth is saying. So.
Oh, so there's three things now: defund, dinosaur, and they just called out performance activism, y'all. Yeah. I feel you on that. That's a whole nother conversation. So, okay, where is the officer now? What's the officer's deal?
So
a
month after he murdered my brother, he's back on the force. He's working. We don't know if he's on the streets or
like
a desk job. But it's one of these things where, as the chief, he has the power to fire this individual. They have the power to do what's right. And, they keep talking about de-escalation, transparency, and all these things, but where was that when all your team pulled up on my brother? You know,
what if Jarrett Ton pulled out of the car and just de-escalated the situation? You know, what would have been the outcome? You know, Sean would have been here to tell his story versus us having to do that for him.
Unbelievable. The demand that we put out on the PSA 2 was for there to be a special prosecutor. Let us tell our audience why that's important. I mean, it's really necessary. The DA is recused.
Yeah.
These other people in the system you can trust. You really need a special prosecutor.
So from the beginning, our attorney has reached out to the AG's office for about 5 years to intervene and look over what's been happening in Vallejo for far too long. They've always declined. Until my brother's case is the first time Javier Becerra, the AG of California, said he will intervene and look into the murder of my brother. Then, you know, this was wow, someone's actually going to do something that's in the right, and be a part of history. And this is when he said, no, my office will just look at the police, how the police are in Vallejo, but also just the destruction of evidence, as the murder itself is not anything important for him. And after Krishna Abrams, which is the DA of Solano County, recused herself, she bounced the case to the AG's office. The AG bounced it back to her and saying,
it just became this game of political hot potato, and they've been passing the case back and forth. And it wasn't until, you know, it was a 4-month anniversary of our brother's murder that we were like, you know what, let's just figure something out ourselves. Let's organize and see what we can do. So we pulled up to Governor Gavin Newsom's home and got arrested with 17 other protesters. And our demands were to appoint a special prosecutor, to fire Jarrett Ton, and to fire those that were involved in the destruction of evidence. And it wasn't until then till we really got a lot more attention, especially from Gavin Newsom, him being a San Francisco native, being our neighbor, or our mayor, and then just being our governor now. You know,
you would think that he would be on the side and hear out impacted families and stories, but here we were welcomed with 30 plus officers being arrested, spent 23 hours in county jail, suited up, got put in our pods and everything. And it was really, and I had a moment to myself when I was like, wow, Sean, I was praying to God, and I was like, things we have to do to get an answer. And
it wasn't until we got the attention from Gavin Newsom that he kind of nudged AG Becerra, and the Attorney General didn't do much until maybe 2 weeks ago, that he had agreed to have a sit down with our family. But 2 days after he agreed to have that sit down with us was when he got promoted to be the health advisor for Biden. So it was just one of those things are you just trying to tie up loose ends so you can say you did this and now you're going to DC? Or are you really trying to do what you need to do? And so it's just one of those things these cases take a really long time, but we're not letting up, and we'll continue to target who we need to target to get to the goal.
And there's something as AG that Xavier Becerra could do.
Right.
Yes.
He could do it right now.
He could do it right now. He could, from the start, he could have been like, I'm investigating full on the whole murder of Sean, putting criminal charges on Jarrett Ton. They have the power to do that. So for impacted families, it's back to how I was saying, they say our loved ones' names, but don't do anything about,
And justice delayed is justice denied. So, and we've been waiting for 6 months, and there's families who have been waiting for 5+ years, and so on. So, it's just one of those things where we're pushing for Sean to get justice, but, let that be a domino effect for all these other families.
But also, like I said, building that bridge with these politicians, because at the end of the day, impacted families deserve a seat at the table, and to build their own table. We need to build our own table to push for our own laws and legislation to hold these officers accountable.
So I wonder if we should raise objection to Xavier Becerra's appointment as Secretary of Health and Human Services until or because, he does something on behalf of your brother. But in order to make that decision, do you all know, I don't mean to put you on the spot because I don't know off the top of my head. So if the AG leaves, does the governor appoint the successor, or do they hold a special election?
The governor appoints someone. So he's going to have to appoint someone for AG and senator now, because Kamala's also in DC now.
Yeah. So it's one of these things. Yeah.
So it's kind of a two-pronged strategy. Raising the issue at his confirmation. We need to find a senator that will do that in the confirmation hearings. That's one thing. We sometimes my shows turn into movement meetings. I'm sorry. That's one. Two, light up Gavin Newsom and say that qualification number one for whomever he appoints must be someone, that qualification must be that they will take up your brother's case.
Yeah.
I think those are the two things we need to do, right?
Right. And that's the thing, he's been far too silent. And not only with my brother's case, there was a 3-week span here in California where 3 Latino men were murdered by the hands of police, and he still has yet to say anything. So for us, it's, we're not going to let up. We're going to keep fighting. And how Ashley says, how my brother was, it's either fight or flight, Are you going to keep fighting, or just going to, not do anything about it? So he gave us too many tools, and as Ashley said, he's lit up this torch. And, also his last text message that he left on this earth is also bringing unity back, unity back between the Black community and the Latino community,
There's so much anti-Blackness in the Latino community that needs to be addressed as well. And, while we're fighting this fight, we're letting people know that, the Latino community, especially, don't wait until this happens to your own kid, because this could happen to anyone. And, you have to hop on this, fight in this movement before,
your loved one's gone, and then you're like, wait, I wasn't there for that, but I'm here for this now. It's one of these things where we can bring that change and have this domino effect. And, Sean, people know of Sean on June 2nd, but they never knew of Sean before June 2nd. And he was just a community member. He was the type of kid, he's like, if there's a bunch of resources, I'm going to take them all. He was always like, I need a knowledge of books, programs, mentorship. Mentorship is key. Whatever you learn, you only really see what you do when it's passed down. And that's what Sean valued. And it just sucks that
he was robbed from all that.
Wow. You mentioned anti-Blackness, but folks, Sean was a brown brother standing up for a Black brother. So he was killed the same way the Black brother was killed for whom he was standing up. So we need to get rid of all of this anti on either side, because it could be one of us. And literally, these two young ladies, suppose their brother had invited them to go demonstrate with him. So it's no longer a thing it could have been. It would have been, if they had been there with him, they probably would have been shot too. Okay, this is how close to home these situations are, and why we must get involved. So I know what I'm gonna do. As soon as we finish, I'm calling some of our mutual friends and saying, y'all, we need to get in this confirmation hearing, and we need to light up this governor about the replacement. But aside from that, what would you like Ashley and Michelle to leave our audience with? What actions would you encourage our audience to take hearing you today?
More importantly for us, as we said, and reiterating, is really don't wait till it's on your own loved one, and just because, we got Biden and Harris in office does not mean it's
the work is done.
The work is done and it's a clap and I go back to my 9 to 5 and live in my beautiful Victorian home or wherever, right? And that's what we see here in San Francisco. For impacted families, it's, this is our everyday commitment. A lot of people get to choose and when they come into this fight.
Because it's a trend, But it's one of those things, like Michelle said, don't wait till it's one of your loved ones, and don't get involved until it's too late. If you know any impacted families, bring them food to their home. It's hard to grieve and do the work and just go to work just in general and just even cook a meal. It's just easy as that. Or donate to impacted families, or just support however way you can. If you're a graphic designer, offer your graphic design, skills to help do flyers or whatever. There's like Carmen Perez from The Gathering always said, there's a place for anyone to contribute and to join this movement with whatever gift and skills they have. So
there's somewhere you can contribute, and more importantly, as of right now, follow the Justice for Sean _ Instagram page. That's where we really post and keep everyone engaged and involved in what's happening in our case. And, just going on the fight for Sean, but also, we have the Gathering for Justice helping us. We have Grassroots Law Project helping us out, so, and just don't wait. It's unfortunate that, like I said, a lot of this people pick and choose when, and it's a lot of performance, but, and also we need to recognize people don't know, right? They've never been exposed to this. So there might be a little bit like, well, where do I contribute? Right. And it's just as long as you come with love and open arms, the community is willing to find a place for you, and just carrying this conversation, more importantly, and bringing unity back and strength in numbers. United we stand, divided we fall.
Yeah. I admire the strength and the courage you both have. I know it is not easy. I'm emotional listening to the two of you. I cannot imagine being in your position, having to do what you do, and at the same time mourn your brother who was taken from us just such a short time ago. But we do appreciate you. I think I speak on behalf of everyone listening. We are here for you. Folks, we have got to get involved in this. Gathering for Justice has a PSA. I helped them out a little bit with that. Is there any specific website? Do you all have a website? Is there a place where you want to send people to?
You can go to the gatheringforjustice.com/justice for Sean. We also have a standwithsean.com also website, and then pretty much just our Instagram page.
We have a link tree in our bio where you can get directed to petitions, ways to donate to our family. We also have a social justice library in honor of our Sean where you can donate so we can purchase books to give back to the community. And that's where you can help out.
And Sean, go ahead.
What's the Instagram handle?
Justice _4 Sean SEAN _.
Got it. What about Twitter? You all on Twitter as well?
Yeah, same for Twitter. Same name.
Twitter. Justice for Sean _ please, folks, get involved. We're going to be sharing even more of this with you, pushing this out because we cannot wait for the next incident to happen. And what these two young ladies have done is shine a light on that whole police department, because obviously there are countless impacted families. How many, if you said police have been killed there in the past?
37 men.
37 Black and brown men have been murdered since 1997. And the 14 officers that have murdered not just one person, but more than one person are still on the force and surveilling and driving around underserved Black and brown communities.
But, because we're in San Francisco, they don't target us. They target the other families that live in Vallejo to this day. If a family member out there speaks out, they're at their doors with bright lights, just harassing them at 3 a.m. So it's one of these things that we're going to keep going. We're going to keep putting the microscope on them. And Vallejo is the third highest in California with the most murders. They are the highest here. And it's just not right. And we need these elected officials to really put their foot down and do what's right, make communities safe. And also we need to protect ourselves within our own communities, and just finding ways to heal. And, this work that we're doing is our way of healing. You said how it hurts for us. It hurts for us that we have to commit. We have to do this, right? But for us, we know God's given us strength, and we're healing as we go. And we just want to make sure that there's no other impacted family that we meet in Vallejo anymore. Yeah.
Ashley and Michelle Monterrosa, thank you for joining us. We're praying for you. Audience, please pray for them. Get involved to go on Instagram and Twitter, Justice for Sean _ standwithsean.com, gatheringforjustice.com/justice for Sean. Visit all of those. Sean Monterrosa, folks, we're going to lift up his name and we're going to fight on in his memory. God bless your parents. I can't even imagine what they're going through. And these parents have to go to work every day, folks. Their lives have to go on. They have to continue to provide for themselves and their children. So let's keep them lifted up as well. Ashley, again, thank you for your strength and your courage. Okay.
Thank you.
God bless you guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks for getting woke and listening to Make It Plain. Please remember to listen, like, subscribe, and wherever you get your podcasts, please give the show a 5-star rating. And please do spread the word. Let's all continue to pray for each other during this pandemic and this police-demic. If all hearts and minds are clear, it has been made plain.
Hey, I'm Kat, mom of 3 and founder of Ritual, the company setting a new standard in the supplement industry. When I was pregnant with my first daughter, I remember staring at my prenatal vitamins and thinking, what's in this stuff? All I found were vitamins high in heavy metals, synthetic colorants, and lacking in the very essential nutrients we need. I believe women deserve to know what they are putting in their bodies and why. So at 4 months pregnant, I quit my job to reinvent the prenatal vitamin. We scoured the world for the best quality ingredients, backed by clinical studies and third-party tested for heavy metals and microbes. And this year, we were awarded the Purity Award from the Clean Label Project, the supplement safety certification that tests for 200 harmful chemicals and toxins. With Ritual, you'll know where your ingredients come from and why we use them. Join our family of skeptics with 40% off your first month when you visit ritual.com/podcast.